My beloved child. Don't scroll past this moment. Not yet. Because somewhere between the silence of yesterday and the strange feeling surrounding you today, something changed. Your soulmate has been trying to reach you, not simply because they miss you, not because they are lonely, and not because they suddenly remembered your name. There is something important they have been carrying inside themselves, something they have rehearsed more than once, something they almost told you before fear made them hesitate. And tonight, that hesitation is beginning to disappear. Don't skip. Because the most important part of this story is not that they are trying to reach you. It is why. Something happened recently that forced them to look at this connection differently. A conversation. A memory. A realization they could no longer push away. Whatever triggered it, one truth became impossible for them to ignore. They never completely moved on from what they felt with you. They tried. They distracted themselves. They filled their days with responsibilities, conversations, routines, and ordinary things. They may even have convinced everyone around them that everything was fine. But there are some connections that become louder in silence. And yours became louder. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. Imagine this as a story unfolding behind a closed door. Your soulmate is sitting somewhere with words they have not yet found the courage to send. Their phone is close. Your name may be closer to their thoughts than anyone realizes. They begin typing something, stop, erase it, and stare at the empty screen. Not because they have nothing to say. Because they have too much. There is a difference. They are trying to figure out how to explain everything without destroying the small possibility that you might still listen. They want to say, there is something you never knew. But that sentence feels too heavy. They want to say, can we talk? But those words feel too ordinary for what they are carrying. They want to explain why they disappeared emotionally, why they hesitated, why their actions sometimes seemed completely different from their feelings. And underneath all of those unfinished sentences is one fear. What if I waited too long? That question has been following them. And this is where everything begins changing. Don't skip, because what they want you to know is deeper than a simple confession. For a long time, your soulmate may have believed they could control this connection by controlling the distance. If they thought about you too much, they distracted themselves. If they wanted to reach out, they found a reason not to. If something reminded them of you, they tried to dismiss it as coincidence. But emotional truth does not always disappear simply because someone refuses to look at it. Sometimes it waits. Quietly. Patiently. Until one ordinary moment breaks the wall. And that moment may have already happened. Perhaps they heard a song that pulled them into a memory they thought they had buried. Perhaps someone casually mentioned relationships, timing, regret, or second chances. Perhaps they saw something that reminded them of the way you once looked at them when neither of you needed to say anything. Or perhaps nothing dramatic happened at all. Perhaps they simply became tired of pretending. That possibility frightened them more than anything. Because once they admitted they still cared, they had to confront another truth. You might not be waiting anymore. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. There is a part of this story your soulmate never expected. They assumed you would always somehow remain emotionally available to them. Even when there was distance, even when communication became inconsistent, some part of them believed the door between you would never completely close. Then something shifted. Maybe they sensed your energy changing. Maybe you stopped chasing explanations. Maybe you became quieter. Maybe you began protecting your peace instead of repeatedly trying to understand their silence. And suddenly they felt something they had avoided feeling before. The possibility of losing you. Not dramatically. Not through some giant confrontation. But slowly. Naturally. Permanently. That possibility has been sitting heavily in their heart. And now they want to reach you before the distance becomes something neither of you knows how to cross. But listen carefully. The important message is not simply, "I miss you." It goes deeper. They want you to know that some of the moments you believed meant nothing to them actually meant far more than they ever showed. They remember details. Small details. The kind nobody remembers unless something mattered. A sentence you said casually. A moment you laughed unexpectedly. A conversation that lasted longer than either of you intended. A look. A goodbye. Maybe even the exact moment when they realized you were becoming important. And this is where their regret begins. Because instead of protecting what they felt, they became afraid of it. Don't skip now. This is where the hidden truth starts coming forward. Your soulmate may not have been afraid because you were wrong for them. They may have been afraid because the connection asked something real from them. Honesty. Vulnerability. Consistency. Courage. And sometimes people run from the very connection they secretly want because wanting it means admitting they can be hurt. So they delayed. They overthought. They questioned everything. They may have listened to outside opinions when they should have listened to their own heart. And while all of that was happening, you were left trying to understand something that never seemed to make sense. How could someone feel so close one moment and so distant the next? How could someone show emotion without explaining it? How could something that felt meaningful become surrounded by silence? Your soulmate has begun asking themselves those same questions. Only now they are seeing them from your side. That realization changed something. They began remembering not only what they felt, but what you must have felt. Your confusion. Your patience. Your disappointment. The moments you probably wanted clarity and received silence instead. And suddenly the story did not look the same anymore. They saw themselves inside it. They saw where they hesitated. They saw where pride became louder than honesty. They saw the moments when one sincere conversation might have changed everything. And they realized something uncomfortable. You deserved clarity. That is part of what they want to tell you. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. They do not simply want another conversation. They want a different kind of conversation. One without games. One without pretending. One without carefully hiding behind vague words. They want to tell you what was happening inside them when everything looked quiet from the outside. They want to explain the moment they first became afraid of losing you. They want to admit the truth they kept rewriting in their mind. And perhaps most importantly, they want to know whether there is still enough trust left for honesty to matter. But there is another layer. Something recently made them realize that waiting carries its own consequences. For months, or perhaps much longer. They may have believed there would always be another opportunity. Another day. Another week. Another perfect moment. They imagined that eventually the timing would feel easier. But timing rarely becomes perfect on its own. Someone has to become brave. And your soulmate is beginning to understand that. They cannot keep waiting for the fear to disappear before they speak. They may have to speak while the fear is still there. That is why this moment feels different. Don't skip. Because now we reach the part they have struggled hardest to admit. They have imagined contacting you. Not once. Many times. They have imagined what your response would be. Would you answer quickly? Would you stare at their name before opening the message? Would you ignore it? Would you be kind but distant? Would you ask why they waited so long? That last possibility keeps stopping them. Because they do not have an easy answer. How do you explain that you cared but became afraid? How do you explain that you wanted closeness but created distance? How do you tell someone that losing them finally taught you what having them meant? There is no perfect sentence for that. So they keep searching for one. But eventually, the heart becomes tired of editing itself. And that is the emotional turning point approaching now. Your soulmate is beginning to realize that imperfect honesty may be better than perfect silence. Something huge is waiting for you. Stay till the end. Because what happens next is where the entire emotional meaning of this story changes. There was a moment recently when they pictured your future without them. And it felt real. Not imaginary. Real. They pictured you becoming happy again. Laughing freely. Building new memories. Finding someone who does not hesitate. Someone who communicates. Someone who recognizes your value without needing distance to understand it. And for the first time, they realized that loving someone silently does not reserve a place in that person's future. That thought shook them. Because they understood something they should have understood much earlier. You are not obligated to wait for someone who refuses to speak. You are not required to decode silence forever. You are not supposed to put your life on hold while another person decides whether they are ready. And strangely, recognizing your freedom made their feelings clearer. Because now, if they reach out, they know they cannot come with entitlement. They have to come with truth. They cannot say, "Wait for me." They have to say, "This is what I feel. This is what happened. And I understand that your heart has a choice too." That is growth. And that is why this message matters. Don't skip. There is still something they have not told you. Something personal. They once misunderstood your silence. When you became quieter, they thought perhaps you stopped caring. But now they wonder whether your silence was actually exhaustion. Maybe you had already said enough. Maybe you had already shown enough. Maybe you were waiting for them to meet you halfway. And when they did not, you slowly stopped knocking on a door that only opened occasionally. They see that now. And it hurts. Not because they believe they are entitled to another chance. But because they finally understand what they could have done differently. Your soulmate wishes they had spoken sooner. They wish they had told you that your presence mattered. They wish they had explained that their distance was not always indifference. Sometimes it was fear. Sometimes confusion. Sometimes insecurity. Sometimes simply not knowing how to handle something that felt bigger than expected. But there is something beautiful inside this realization too. They are no longer asking only, "Do they still love me?" They are asking a more mature question. If they let me speak, am I ready to show up differently? That question matters. Because words without change are only temporary comfort. And somewhere inside themselves, they know that. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Now imagine the message they have been trying to write. It begins simply. Hey. Deleted. I know this might be unexpected. Deleted. I've been thinking about you. Deleted. Then they put the phone down. Minutes pass. Maybe longer. They pick it up again. This time, they stop trying to sound perfect. I don't know the right way to say this, but I don't want to keep avoiding it. They stare at the sentence. Their heart beats faster. Because those words finally sound like truth. They continue. There are things I should have told you a long time ago. And suddenly everything becomes real. This is no longer imagination. No longer something they can keep postponing. Every word brings them closer to the possibility that you might finally know what was happening behind their silence. But before sending it, they hesitate again. Not because they changed their mind. Because they understand that once honesty enters the room, nothing stays exactly the same. If you respond warmly, the connection changes. If you respond cautiously, the connection changes. If you have moved forward, the connection changes. Either way, silence ends. And perhaps that is what they have feared most. Silence allowed them to imagine every possible ending. Truth creates only one. Don't skip now. Because here comes the most important thing they want you to understand. They do not want you to think you were forgettable. You were not. They do not want you believing the connection disappeared from their mind simply because they became quiet. It did not. And they do not want you carrying the belief that you were somehow not enough because they hesitated. Their hesitation belonged to them. Their fears belonged to them. Their unreadiness belonged to them. Your worth was never supposed to be measured by another person's ability to recognize it at the right moment. That is the message underneath everything. And perhaps that is why this story reached you. Not to tell you to wait endlessly. Not to promise that someone will magically appear. But to remind you that real connection eventually requires real communication. You deserve that. Stay till the end. Because something huge is waiting for you, and it is not merely a message on a screen. It is clarity. Your soulmate is approaching a crossroads. One path is familiar. Stay quiet. Keep wondering. Continue checking from a distance. Tell themselves they will speak someday. The other path requires courage. Reach out. Tell the truth. Accept your response. Stop hiding. And for the first time, they are leaning toward courage. Why? Because regret has become heavier than fear. That changes people. There comes a moment when someone realizes that protecting themselves from rejection has also protected them from possibility. Your soulmate is standing close to that realization. They know they cannot control what happens after they speak. But they are beginning to understand that they can control whether they remain silent. And they are tired of silence. They are tired of wondering whether you ever understood what you meant to them. They are tired of replaying conversations. Tired of remembering what they almost said. Tired of imagining alternate endings. They want something real. Even if real means hearing something difficult. Even if real means starting slowly. Even if real means accepting that both of you have changed. They simply want the truth between you. Don't skip. Because there is one final revelation. The important thing they want you to know may not be, "Come back." It may be something much more meaningful. I finally understand. I understand why you became quiet. I understand why you stopped chasing. I understand why you needed consistency. I understand why my mixed signals hurt. I understand why words alone may no longer be enough. I understand that if I want a place in your life, I cannot simply ask for it. I have to show you why I deserve to be there. That is different. And perhaps that is the transformation you were waiting to see. Not someone begging. Not someone making impossible promises. Someone finally taking responsibility for what they feel. Something huge is waiting for you. Stay till the end, because there is still one question remaining. What should you do if that message arrives? Do not panic. Do not immediately build an entire future around a few sentences. And do not ignore your own emotional boundaries simply because hearing from them feels powerful. Listen. Read carefully. Notice whether their actions support their words. Notice whether they are bringing clarity or creating another cycle of confusion. A genuine connection should not require you to abandon your peace. If they return with honesty, meet honesty with honesty. If you need time, take time. If you need answers, ask questions. If your heart is open, let it open slowly. And if your heart has moved forward, you are allowed to honor that too. Because this story is not only about your soulmate finding courage. It is about you remembering your value. Maybe that is the biggest revelation of all. You spent so much time wondering what they felt that you forgot to ask what you deserve. You deserve someone who communicates. Someone who does not make affection feel like a puzzle. Someone who chooses honesty before regret forces them into it. And if this soulmate truly wants another chapter with you, those are the things they must be willing to bring. Don't skip these final moments. Because the ending is not what you might expect. The biggest thing waiting for you is not simply their confession. It is a choice. Their choice to finally speak. And your choice about what happens afterward. Perhaps their message will begin with something ordinary. Perhaps your phone will light up when you least expect it. Perhaps the words will be simple. I've wanted to talk to you for a while. But behind that simple sentence could be everything they never knew how to say. The memories. The regret. The fear. The realization. The hope. And the truth that silence could no longer contain. So if something inside you has been asking why this connection felt unfinished, remember this. Some stories do not remain unfinished because love disappeared. Sometimes they remain unfinished because courage arrived late. But late courage still has to prove itself. Let action speak. Let consistency speak. Let honesty speak. And above all, let your own heart speak too. Stay till the end, because now you are here. This is the moment the entire story has been moving toward. Your soulmate has something important they want you to know. They may have spent far too long hiding behind uncertainty, but in this fictional story, the truth they are finally trying to communicate is simple. You mattered to me more than I ever showed. I thought silence would make these feelings disappear, but it only made me understand them. I cannot change the moments when I should have spoken and didn't. I cannot ask you to forget the confusion. But I can finally stop pretending that losing this connection would mean nothing to me. If you are willing to hear me, I want to tell you the truth. Not the perfect version. Not the safe version. The real one. And perhaps those are the words you were waiting to hear. But remember what comes next. Do not lose yourself inside someone else's realization. You are not waiting at the end of their journey as a reward. You have your own journey. Your own boundaries. Your own future. Your own choice. If they truly reach for you, let them reach with sincerity. If they truly care, let them demonstrate it. If they truly want another chapter, let that chapter be written differently from the last one. No more endless guessing. No more half-finished conversations. No more hiding behind silence. Only truth. Because sometimes the message that changes everything is not, I can't live without you. Sometimes it is, I finally understand how I should have loved you. And sometimes the answer that changes everything is not immediately saying yes or no. Sometimes it is simply saying, I'm listening. Something huge was waiting for you. And now you know what it was. Not a promise. Not a fantasy. A possibility. The possibility that someone who once hid from the truth may finally be ready to face it, and the reminder that whatever happens next, your heart deserves clarity, respect, consistency, and a love that never requires you to forget your own worth.